All right, guys, 10.4b today is more ellipses. And so we're just going to do a quick recap before we jump in. The formula, the equation for this, x squared over a squared, not equals, plus y squared over b squared equals 1. If we think about the look of a given ellipse, keep in mind that you go a negative a units here, a positive a units here, and then however many units up you went here, and down you went here. Those are your b's and negative b. So your ellipse is something like this, okay? Your foci are going to be in here somewhere on the major axis. So that's foci, that's focus and a focus, foci plural. And then keep in mind the distance from the focus to the center is your length of C. So when we're trying to find the foci, we would do C squared. In this case, it's going to be, it's always the bigger minus the smaller. So bigger is A squared minus B squared, the smaller in this one, right? Because the A is bigger than the B. Or if you flipped the ellipse, it would have been the C squared equals B squared minus A squared, right? But it's always bigger minus smaller. Okay, so kind of a general overview. Here's what we are going to do. This first one is the easiest, I would say. Example 1. We are going to come up with the equation for the ellipse. Given this. So your vertices, we're going to say are 0 plus or minus 7. Your covertices are going to be plus or minus 2, 0. And then you can always graph this if it helps you to see it, graphing it. You don't have to. But we're just trying to come up with what is the equation. So if I were you, I would start with this because we know it's always going to be x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. So I would start there and then fill in what we need to fill in. Now think about what we have here. This is your y of your vertex is 7. So that's going to go with this guy, with the y. That's going to be your b, right? So b squared, if 7 is your b, 7 squared makes this 49. This is going to be your x, which is going to go with this guy, and that's your a. A squared, or 2 squared, would get you 4. So your equation looks like this, and that is about as easy as they get on these problems. We're going to get a little fancier. Example 2. Let's say your foci are plus or minus 7, 0, and your covertices are at 0 plus or minus 6. Okay. Here's what I need you to think about before we really even jump in. If your foci are at plus or minus 7, 0, if you think about what that looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, this is your foci. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so those are your foci. And then your covertices are plus or minus 6. So your covertices, if your foci are here, that means your vertices are on that same axis. So your covertices are 0 plus or minus 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. right? So your ellipse is looking something like this. Okay, I am a very visual person, so this makes sense to me when you draw it out. You don't have to draw it out, but if it makes more sense to you, draw it out, okay? So we know our equation is gonna look like this. X squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1, okay? Now, we've got to figure out our a value so we can get our a squared down here, and our b value so we can get our b squared down here. Excuse me. Our b value we already have. So if you look here for our covertice, this is our b distance. Okay, that means that b squared, which goes under our y squared, would be 36. You take that 6 and you square it. Okay. What we need to find is our a squared, and the way that we do that, whenever they give you the foci, you're going to use the c squared equals and then figure out which one is which. So we have to use this c squared excuse me, equals, and now it's always the bigger minus the smaller. So our bigger right now would be this, right? So that's going to be the a squared, which we don't know, minus our 36 is going to be our smaller this way. So minus 36, excuse me. And we know C right now. Do you remember what C is? We said C is the distance from the focus to 0, 0. So this length was 7, right? 7 units. So we're going to plug that 7 in for C. So really it's 7 squared, or 49, equals a squared minus 36. So we just need to add 36. And we get 85. And it's really tempting right here to now square root because we're so used to solving for a, but we don't need a. We need a squared. So we're just going to take that 85 and put it in right here. So this would be our equation. X squared over 85 plus y squared over 36 equals 1. Okay. That's a little fancier, right? How about this one? Maybe you want to try this one. I'm not going to pause it because you can pause me. So try this. See if you can get this. If you are given the foci are 0 and plus or minus 8, and covertices that are plus or minus 4, 0. Very similar to the last problem, but notice the difference. Okay, this one's going to face the other way. This one's going to be turned because now you have your x value instead of your y value for the covertice. Okay, so pause me if you want to pause me. Try this out. I want the equation of the ellipse. So I would start like this. X squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1 is going to be our equation. And we need to figure out what is what here. So again, if you like to draw it, you may draw it. You don't have to do this, guys. If you can see it without, go ahead and do it without. I like drawing it. I know other people can like drawing it too. So if we're going to draw in our foci, we have 0, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would label that as F if I were you, just so you don't think it's a vertex. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then we have covertices at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, and 1, 2, 3, negative 4. Keep in mind, the F is your foci, so we would actually end up like this more. Ooh, that was one of my better ones, guys. So you can think of this as what your ellipse should be looking like. What we need to figure out is what is our a squared, right? That's going to go underneath the x squared, and what is our y squared, or b squared, sorry, which is going to go under the y squared. So if you look at what we know here, that that 4, that's your x value, right? That's on the vertex, that's the x value. So that's this length, which is your a length. So if we have an a of 4, then a squared is 16. Okay, so that's a pretty simple one to find. We need to find the b squared. So you got to ask yourself, which c squared equation are we using? C squared equals something minus something, okay? And it's always bigger minus smaller, and we know one of those numbers is going to be the 16. Well, if you look here, because it came from, you can't really see that, because it came from this axis, right, which is the shorter, the 16 is going to be the smaller number right now. So we're going to put 16 here. Which means this is going to be, we're solving for b, so b squared minus a squared. And then we need to know c squared. Well, we know that our c value is always from the focus to 0, which is 8. So this is going to be 8 squared or 64. So it's going to be 64 equals b squared minus 16. So we're going to add 16. And we get 80 for our b squared. Don't square root that because we want b squared. Remember the equation itself is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. So we're just trying to find a b squared to plug in. Well, b squared is 80, so we're going to put 80 right there, and we're done. Okay. All right, next one, example 4. Let's say we have a focus. Remember, that's just the singular. Foci is the plural. Foci. I do that all the time. Foci. Your focus is 0, 3. And now they're going to give you a y-intercept. And this is a little bit different. They haven't given it to you before as a y-intercept. But if you stop and think about what that means, I think you guys can figure this out. Let's say we're going to give a visual of it. Okay? A focus at 0, 3. 1, 2, 3. That puts us right there for our focus. A y-intercept, you guys know what a y-intercept is, right? It's where it hits the y-axis. Well, here's your y-axis. My y-intercept is 1, 2 more. It's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that means that is a point on my ellipse. So what that means is if I go the other direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here, because my foci are, I'll make that black so I'm not confusing, are on that same axis, that's my long side, right? Which means it's my major axis. So we don't know exactly what it looks like. We don't know how far out we went here, but we know that the points that we have are our longer edge. So let's set up an equation. Remember, the equation is x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1 every single time. Excuse me. So we're trying to come up with what is our a squared and what is our b squared. This length, right, that's your b length. So I know if that is a length of 5, then my b squared is 25, right? It's on my y-axis, so it's going to go with the y, 25, 5 squared. B is 5, so 5 squared. For our other one then, that's what we have to solve for. And we know right now that our C length, let me switch colors here so we can highlight this a little. That length to my focus is 3, right? So that's C. So we're saying C squared equals something squared minus something squared. Again, it doesn't really matter which, like if you've memorized A and B, you're doing your bigger minus your smaller. In this case, our B squared is bigger, right? Because this is longer than this. So if we plug in what we know, C is 3. So we're going to say 3 squared. B squared, we already know, is 25. minus a squared, which is what we're solving for. So 9 equals 25 minus a squared. We're going to take away the 25, and you get negative 16 equals negative a squared. And then just to simplify, we divide by negative 1. So a squared is 16, and that is going to go here. So your equation, we'll just rewrite that. There's a lot going on there. X squared over 16 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. And that's your answer. Okay. Example 5. Last one. Okay, let's say they tell us that we have a focus. Oh, looks like a W, sorry. A focus at negative 5, 0, and a width. Okay, so our ellipse has a width of 14. Okay, so here's the deal with this. You have our equation, x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. If you were to draw a picture of this, a focus at negative 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's your focus. And then a width of 14, and the width is the whole width of like the entire ellipse, which means if it goes 14, that's going to go, because it's symmetrical starting at 0, 0, it's going to go 7 on each side. So 6, 7, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our ellipse is going to look something like this. Ooh, that was not great in terms of my spacing. So we know that's what we're working with. Okay, now let's think about what we know then. Our A term, this right here, which is our A, is 7, right? Because the whole thing was 14, this is 7. So we are plugging in a 7 squared, or 49, into our A squared. Okay, now we need to figure out what our B squared is. So if we set it up, excuse me, C squared equals, this one's going to be A squared because the A is bigger, right? The B is this way, that's smaller, A is bigger, so A squared minus B squared. Our C squared right now, remember the length of C is this distance. So our C length is 5. So we're doing 5 squared, or 25, equals A squared we already have, 49, minus B squared. So we're going to take away 49 from both sides, and you get negative 24 equals negative B squared, and then just divide by negative 1. So our B squared is 24. That means that number is going to go here. So our answer is x squared over 49 plus y squared over 24 equals 1. And that is it.